From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome, one and all, to the Wow Report here on Radio Andy. I am Tom Campbell. I'll be your host today, filling in for Fenton Bailey, our fearless leader who's in Europe, making the world go wow. Joining us this week, as he does every week, it's Club Kid turned best-selling author, the editor of the Wow Report itself, James St. James.
Well, hello. Nice to see you.
Nice to be seen. And coming from the background into the light is none other than Blake Jacobs, our millennial producer, which used to mean he was young, and now it just means he's a millennial. And Jake, well, go ahead.
Middle age.
Millennials are growing older every day as we speak. And
There's
Blake
a new
just
boomers.
had a birthday too, so he is ancient now. How old are you now, Blake?
40.
Holy crap! Lordy, Blake is 40.
Forever 39.
And we say you're a baby. You're a baby still. Anyway, each week we count down the top 10 things in pop culture that make us go, wow. And we're ready to do it now, starting with number 10.
Number 10.
We pre-taped last week's show earlier in the week because Fenton was traveling, and we missed maybe the top story of the week if you're homosexual or you're just a person who loves theater. And that was the passing of Dame Angela Lansbury.
Wow, it really hurt. This was one that when I saw the news, literally tears were streaming down my face. It really got to me.
Now, you weren't surprised because of her age.
No, she was 96, so it's a life well lived. And when someone is 96, you aren't saddened by it, but it's a passing, it's a milestone, and it's a chunk of your life that's just gone.
Absolutely. And there's really no other star ever, I believe, that had the longevity and the almost slow burn. She was famous, she was in movies in the golden age of Hollywood in the 40s. She was in Gaslight. She was in all those movies.
Her first two roles, Gaslight, and she got nominated for an Oscar, and she was like 21, something like that.
Exactly.
She was just a young slip of a girl. Yes.
But you know how some stars will peak? They'll have their 5 years, their 10 years, their definitional, and then they kind of become stuck in that mode. She was part of the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. She was the mother in The Manchurian Candidate. And then
you've got to point out that when she was the mother, she was playing opposite her co-star, her son. She was only 5 years older than her son, wasn't she?
Which is the key to success too, is to play old young and then play it the rest of your life.
Yes, she was somebody who looked old even when she was in her 30s. She was playing like 50, 60-year-old women.
The toast of Broadway in Mame. Just
with B. Arthur, yes,
the musical. And then there is the story that someone brought to my attention that in the late 60s, her kids were getting involved in drugs, and one daughter in particular was kind of hanging out with the Mansons, and so she plucked the family and moved to like Ireland, to where her grandmother was from, and sort of stepped away from show business for a bit. But saved her family.
You really have to lean into that story, because the daughter was hanging out with a guy who was very unsavory and very creepy, crazy, and he was having her steal from Angela and steal from her purse, steal food for him, and then come to find out after she got her daughter away from this creepy guy that it was Charles Manson.
Yes.
Who was hanging out with the daughter. And you got to think, Charles Manson was also hanging out with Doris Day's son. He was also with the Beach Boys. I mean, he was targeting, really infiltrating the Hollywood,
all these famous children.
All of that.
Before there was reality television, there was Charles Manson.
Before we go on to a little bit more of her career, there was a story in the Daily Mail that I sent to both of you that John Waters was giving an interview, and he said that in the 80s, he ran into Angela Lansbury at the Hellfire Club in New York. Now, I lived above the Hellfire Club, and the Hellfire Club was a seedy sex club. It was an S&M sex club that was just literally every time you turned around, there was, a penis in your hand, or someone was licking licking your boots or someone was sniffing at your butthole. I mean, like, you could, no matter, I mean, seeing Angela Lansbury there is just one of those great incongruous things that, anyway, but Tom, keep going on about her career, please.
No, but it's just, I mean, we all know it, but it's, and then Murder, She Wrote, which was when people watch television. It was probably the #1 show for 10 years, CBS Sunday nights. My mother loved it. You know whose favorite show that is to this day? RuPaul Andre Charles.
Oh, sure. Well, you know, it's funny because during the pandemic, I started watching it again, and it's like one of those Love Boat things where every episode it's an Ethel Merman, it's it's some star from the Golden, and come to find out that it was a lot. She used a lot of these older stars who were still needed their
they didn't work to qualify for their insurance. And so she would employ them to keep them
working anymore from the 30s and 40s, and she would give them jobs so that they could keep their SAG insurance, which is just God.
Whenever I'm watching Turner Classic Movie, as I do often, and I go on a Google search, you know, of the actors, they're like busy in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and then they did Murder, She Wrote in the 80s.
Then it was Perry Mason in the 50s, Love Boat in the 70s, and Murder, She Wrote. Definitely.
Yes. We can't forget that she was Miss Teapot and
in Beauty.
I was saying
also Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, in which she single-handedly stopped the Nazis from invading Europe by singing to a flying bed. But she was also my favorite movie, if you get a chance. It's called All Falls Down, and it's a 1960s movie starring Warren Beatty as her son. And Warren Beatty, and it's very Tennessee Williams Southern Gothic, and he plays a hustler who is obviously based on like a gay hustler, but they had to make him straight. Sure. His name is Barry, Berry, Berry and the whole movie is Barry, is that you, Barry? What the hell are you doing, Barry? And watching her be Warren Beatty's mother is absolutely hysterical. You have to see it if you haven't had a chance. It's so good.
But you can find Beauty and the Beast made her like immortal, right? Like generations and generations will remember her for that. And she was working on Broadway just a few years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say Broadway, not only Mame, but she was an incredible gypsy. She was an incredible, I mean, what other ones do you know? What can you think of? Company.
It's just intense and immense. And what a body of work she has left behind. And I know it's last week's news, but we just needed to have a moment to walk down memory lane with the incredible career of Angela Lansbury. May she rest in perfection.
Barry, is that you? Please watch All Fall Down. It is so lurid in camp. It is one of the best movies of all time.
You heard it here first. All right, let's move on now to number 9.
Number 9.
Number 9, I saw a movie over the weekend at the theater called Triangle of Sadness. It won the Palm.
Which I thought was the fake movie from Bros. I thought you were going to talk about that.
No, you're going to be hearing a lot about it come awards season. It won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. Got a 10-15 minute standing ovation there. I saw it with a packed theater at 10 o'clock in the morning, and people were laughing out loud and cheering and standing up and everything. It is a very brutal takedown of the fashion industry, the beautiful people, the 1%, the social media influencers, capitalism, class inequality, gender differences, racism. It takes on all of it. It says that the tagline is something about how vanity is toxic and fortunes corrupt. And that's sort of what it is. The triangle of sadness that it's talking about is the area between your eyebrows. When you frown is the triangle, and that's what you need to get your Botox in. But I think also the triangle of sadness probably refers to the 1% at the top of the triangle and the bottom half of it being the worker bees. Tom is trying very hard to show us his Botox triangle of sadness.
I don't have Botox. I'm very proud.
Oh, you lied like a rug. I know you have Botox. Anyway, the main characters in this, there's a bratty supermodel, runway model who's a social media influencer, and her boyfriend who is a male model and not quite as successful, which sort of sets up the dynamic right there. And he's played by a ginger British actor named Harris Dickinson. Watch out for him. He is a superstar. He's so handsome, so good. Her name was Charbly Dean. And she's so beautiful and so funny and so good. Sadly, a week after the Cannes premiere, she died in real life. So this was her swan song. It was They say it was a very fast illness, but we don't know what it was or what happened. But she passed away right after the premiere. The two of them are invited onto a super yacht, okay? And the super yacht is she has to like pose for bikini pictures on the deck in exchange for the room and board on the yacht. And the yacht is filled with like a Russian oligarch, a horny billionaire, a sweet elderly couple who made all their money in landmines and grenades. It's sort of like the 1%. And it's no surprise, know it from the trailer, that the yacht sinks and they end up on a deserted island. And very quickly, it turns into Lord of the Flies, where the 1%, the beautiful people, are absolutely helpless. And there's a Filipino cleaning woman who takes care of the toilets, who quickly takes over, and all hell breaks loose from there because she is just ruthless. She's so good. And she takes the hot supermodel hunk for herself. She says, "You're coming with me if you want any fish. If you're going to eat any of fish, you're coming with me, bitch. And you're going to get me off now." And so it's sort of Lord of the Rings, Gilligan's Island, and it has an ending, which the whole audience, the lights came up and everyone went, "What the fuck was that?" And everybody immediately went on their phone and was like, "What is the meaning of that? What happened?" You'll be talking about this for days, weeks to come afterwards. Watch out for it. It is
You've sold me. You've sold me.
All right. Let's move on now to number 8.
Number 8.
Well, I want to talk about a trio of horror films that you can stream from your very own home. The first up, everyone's been waiting for Halloween Ends.
Well, yes. But before we even start, though, it's been so controversial. I hope you're going to address how controversial it is.
Well, Halloween Ends not soon enough for me. I thought this trilogy was meh. Yeah. It was kind of weird because she now in this final film is all a writer. Jamie Lee Curtis is a writer and almost like Nancy Myers-esque, when in the first couple of films that looked like she tended to farm animals all day. Like her hair. But I hear that was weird. Kyle Richards wasn't in it enough. We did get, that meme of Kyle Richards and Taylor Armstrong from Beverly Hills.
With the cat, yeah.
With the cat. We get like kind of another like a play to that with a character and Kyle Richards.
No, but what I hear the problem is that it leans too much on there's a hot, cute boy that all the gays are going bananas for because he's got beautiful lips. And he is sort of the stand-in for Michael. He sort of starts killing people. I
said I love those DSLs, actually.
Yes, DSLs. And he's very hot, but this sort of like what we've been told for 40 years is that Michael Myers is the supernatural creature who is unstoppable. He's a demonic force. And this, he's sort of like an old, frail man who's like on his last legs, and it doesn't make him scary anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I just watched it at home on Paramount Plus. It is available to watch in theaters if you so choose.
I want to point out that Nancy Pelosi is old and frail, but the Republicans are very scared of her.
That's true. Well, next up, Hellraiser. That kind of has Nancy.
Yeah, and it's another gay one, another gay favorite.
This one's on Hulu. It's a Hulu original. I watched the first two in the original series, like from the 80s.
Both of them. The second one is so good.
I watched them last Halloween in Provincetown. It was rainy one night, so we stayed in. And I enjoyed them, but I didn't really understand the lore of everything. Like, this film is a reboot, and it's the first time that Pinhead is a woman, when in the books, Pinhead is genderless. And there's actually a theory that Pinhead is now the final girl from the original two.
Well, there's a great there's an Instagram star that's a Chihuahua Pinhead. I don't know if you've ever a Chihuahua dressed up like Pinhead. It is so good. It is so funny if you get a chance.
This film does a much better job at explaining the puzzle cube and its configurations.
We have such delights in store for you.
Yeah, it has all the configurations of the cube are given names and they correspond with a reward. But it's like one of those tricks that's not really a reward. I would definitely watch it for sure. The third and final one is it's called Terrifier. This one is streaming for free with ads on Tubi and Freevee. It's about Art the Clown, who never says a word, but he's like super spooky nonetheless. Like super B movie, really bad shot, not very well acted. The gore isn't even that good. But I'm talking about this because the sequel just hit theaters, Terrifier 2, and it's an hour longer, which I don't understand. But they say that people are passing out and throwing up in it. Like USA Today has said that. And I'm thinking, I haven't seen the second one yet. I'm planning to go later this week. But I'm thinking it's like a play by the producers.
Well, you know, I mean, because famously in the 1950s, there was the Roger Corman movies like The Tingler and stuff, where they would hire a nurse to stand in the lobby. People would believe it because they saw the nurse, and or like you would hear the stories about the Exorcist,
right?
And how people were throwing up in the audience, and it would make it even scarier going in because you thought it's just sort of they would psych you out by those things. And
I guess it still works. It's still good PR to have a little throwing up in the theater of a horror movie.
It's all P.T. Barnum. It's all smoke and mirrors.
So tell us the 3 movies you watched again, Blake.
I watched Terrifier. Terrifier 2 is now in theaters. I watched Hellraiser, which is streaming on Hulu. And I watched Halloween Ends, which is streaming on Paramount Plus or in theaters.
It's Halloween month, people. There is some horror movies for you to watch. We're about to take a break. Before we do, we asked Blake for a little trivia question to keep our minds busy over the commercial break.
Yes, sir. I also want to say Drag Race Italia premiered this week. It premiered last night on Wow Presents Plus worldwide, except for in Italy where it's on Discovery Plus. So excellent. Sign up for Wow Presents Plus at wowpresentsplus.com. And I wanted to ask you, remember last week how Madonna was like, guess what? I'm gay.
Yes.
All right.
What celebrity was not at all surprised that Madonna said that? Because Madonna actually hit on her girlfriend.
Oh, I remember this.
All right. We'll have an answer to that. Plus, we'll continue the countdown of the top 10 things this week that made us go, wow. This is the Wow Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And we're back. Counting down the top 10 things that made us go wow this week. But before we do, Blake asked us a trivia question. Ask it again, Blakey.
Last week, Madonna said, well, I'm gay. And this celebrity said she wasn't surprised that Madonna said that because Madonna actually hit on her girlfriend. Who is the female celebrity?
I'm going to guess if Sarah Paulson said it and Madonna was hitting on Holland Taylor.
Like that. I'm going to say it was Rosie O'Donnell. I don't know who the girlfriend was.
But
it's funny because, you know, I would say that, you know, Sandra Bernhard, Rosie O'Donnell, and Ingrid Cazares all have firsthand knowledge of this. So who would it be that would who's this so surprising?
The Mistress of the Dark.
Gay. Oh, Elvira, right? I did see that. Cassandra Peterson.
Yeah,
I love how you tied in Elvira, Halloween, Madonna, lesbianism. You did a really good job there.
Nice.
Thank you. I try.
I still want to believe that Madonna was hitting on Holland Taylor. I want that to be the celebrity couple of the week.
We don't know that she didn't.
Yeah.
True.
It's a visual that's hard to get out of your mind once you plant the seed. Thank you, James. I like that. I see them right together in my head right now. Let's move on down the countdown to number 7.
Number 7.
I have some plugging to do, and this time it's personal, you guys.
Well, can you do it in private this time?
My cousin, Ben Fuller. He's my cousin Candy's son. So that makes him my first cousin once removed. He is this remarkable young man. He always has been. He grew up, as his mom's a school teacher. His father's a dairy farmer. He grew up on the farm, like literally going to school and doing all those things and coming home and milking the cows and plowing the field. This is remarkable and beautiful and tall and friendly and musical. And for most of his 20s, he did what I thought was an incredible career. He made, he did stonemasonry, but like stone walls without any glue or mortar. It was just like,
oh, right. Yeah.
And we have at our cottage, we have a beautiful fireplace from him. And he lives in Vermont and so many people are building whatever. It was this incredible career. Well, at 30, he woke up one day in 2018 and was like, you know what, I'm not doing what I want to do, and now is the time to follow my dreams. And he wrote a song, or a bunch of songs, one of them called Dirt Road to Nashville. And he left and he went to Nashville to try to make it as a country Western singer. And in the past, so he was there for 3 years. He had some good breaks, some tough breaks. It's a hard thing to do. He's working hard, doing what he had to do. And then he was born again. He had experience with his own sobriety and whatnot, and he was with a family, and he has found Jesus, which is interesting to me because I tend to, you know, I don't have that much experience with born again people, so I tend to want to categorize them and think less of them. But this is my cousin Ben, and I know him and I love him, and he has now combined his music, his love of music, and his newfound faith. And he has a song, he has a whole album out called Who I Am. And there's a single, and it's #1 Billboard AC monitored, #1 media-based AC monitored. And I'm just so proud of him. And it's really, we haven't talked a lot lately, although we both saw Tanny Tucker together in Nashville right before the thing. But I love him. He loves me. And I love, this is where people will love me and hate me, but it's like, I think Jesus is a great way to go. You know what I mean? Like, people want faith. They want to have a story. They want to have a road to God. And I think Jesus and his prophecy, I think that's amazing. I just don't like Christians who think that I'm going to burn in hell because I'm gay, or I'm going to burn in hell because I'm not Christian. Because I think there's lots of ways. I think there might be one God, but there's lots of ways there. But you guys listened to his song. What do you take away from Ben Fuller?
My takeaway from Ben Fuller is that he is a cutie patootie by God. I don't know what his politics are, but he's cute. He's got a wonderful voice. He's got a great beard. He is just, and the song is really good that I listened to. I support him 110%. And I'm with you that as long as it's not in my face and it's not telling me I'm going to hell, you believe what you want, and that is fine with me. And if the music is good and the video is good and he looks good, then more power to him.
Yeah, Blake, but you took a listen. What'd you think?
I loved it, and I just want to reiterate, he looks just like my type. All bearded and handsome.
So whether he knows it or not, he's got some gay approval.
He is incredibly charismatic, and that's, I watch him on social media. You know, he's also doing what I think all artists do, but especially in the Christian market, he is hustling. You know, I mean, he's on a truck. They drive. You know, there's nothing glamorous about what he's doing right now, but he's playing concert after concert, bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, opening for people, co-lining, headlining with people. But he's working so hard, and to see the reaction of the girls, especially, and some of the boys, to him and to his work, it's just really exciting. And I'm trying to stay open-minded to you know, what turns people on. I said this once before maybe, but I went to a Fantasia concert at the Apollo years ago, and she started invoking Jesus, and like, I swear to God, the Holy Spirit came into that. You know, like, there was a mood that shifted. There was a power. And I thought, again, I was at odds because I'm like, well, that's weird. I'm not one of those weird Christian evangelical people, but like, you know, and maybe it can be explained away, you know, with science, but like, there are moods and connections and the Bluetooth of people and souls that really turns me on. So I'm glad Ben's having some success and hopefully spreading the good word of Jesus, who said nothing. Jesus said nothing about homosexuality. Jesus said nothing about abortion. So you can lower those on your
Where is it available, and what's the name of the song again?
Who I Am is the album. Who I Am is a single. There's lots of other songs. He's everywhere. He's on YouTube. He's on Spotify. Ben Fuller. Thank you for asking.
Perfect.
All right, let's move on to number 6.
Number 6.
I watched a spooky series over the weekend on Netflix called The Watcher. I don't know if you've been hearing about it, if you've been seeing anything about it. It stars Naomi Watts and Bobby Canavale, who is just so yummy. Oh,
he is like my favorite.
Oh, he's so handsome.
Wasn't he married to some like socialite friend of yours?
Oh, he was married to my friend Jenny, yes, and they have a son, and their son is just the best of both their genes. Wow. Oh, you're gonna have to cut that out because it'll sound like I'm skeeving on my friend's son. That's not what I'm doing. Oh my God, take that out, Blake. Anyway, yes, he was married to my friend Jenny. He's very, very handsome. This is a couple who buys a spooky old house. We know how that goes. Very quickly, they start getting these letters in the mailbox from someone calling himself the Watcher, who seems to know very intimate details of their life that he could only know if he was like in the house watching them, something like that. It's based on a true story that happened in 2014. I remember reporting on it on the WoW Report. It happened over this course of a couple of years, where this couple kept getting these letter after letter after letter from this very spooky man. Eventually they had to leave the house. It's also, it stars Ryan. It's directed and produced by Ryan Murphy, which means that there's a lot of great stunt casting. He's so good at casting. Jennifer Coolidge is the real estate agent. She's so funny. Mia Farrow is the crazy next door neighbor. She's so good. The other two crazy neighbors are Margot Martindale, who if you see, she's a big character actress. She's so funny. And Richard Kind, who is another character actor.
I love Richard Kind.
Kind of feels like it's 7 episodes. It feels like it could either be 3 episodes or a movie. I don't know how. I've only seen 2 episodes. I don't know how they stretch it into 7. I hear that there's some flashbacks with previous owners, blah, blah, blah. But the problem with it is, and this is another spoiler, that it ends and you don't know who the Watcher is, because in real life it's a cold case. We have no idea who the Watcher was. So the movie, the TV show just sort of abruptly ends and we don't get any closure, which is a problem, especially if you've invested 7 episodes into it. And it's easier to do that if you've only put 2 hours into it, like a movie. You can have like a what the fuck ending, but with its series and you've spent all this time with it, it feels a little.
Well, maybe this is like unsolved mysteries, and the Watcher will step forward.
Well, maybe it will bring some new ears and eyes onto the case. Maybe there'll be a podcast that will sort of, because the cast of characters who it could be. It could be anyone. The police chief is really weird and knows all sorts of weird things about them. The neighbors are weird. There's a guy who is installing the cameras and the security system that's weird. Like, it could be anyone.
Right.
So
I have to give kudos to Ryan Murphy, who between Dahmer and The Watcher, I think, has the 2 most watched things on Netflix right now.
He does, and he got that $1 billion deal with Netflix.
Whoa.
And he has been pumping out, like, The Politician was him. I mean, he's been doing so many things. There's a new Feud coming out. I mean, he's got so many things in the works.
But I think these 2 have put him on the map in a way the others haven't, in a good way. I think he's really captivated the world's imagination, for better or worse.
Definitely. And next week this week, later in the week, American Horror Story New York City is coming to FX. And that I think we're gonna have to talk about that next week, because I've heard some things that are.
So Ryan Murphy dominates with The Watcher on Netflix. And the ending has been spoiled for you. Thank you for listening to the WoW Report. Let's move on to number 5.
Number 5.
I went to a little concert last night at the Greek, which I have to say is one of my favorite venues in the world. Did you guys know that it holds just under 6,000 and the Hollywood Bowl holds like 17,000? I didn't realize it was that much smaller.
Yeah, well, they pack us in.
Last night, I went to see Rae Jepsen, who is one of my favorite pop artists of all time. And
underrated.
One-hit wonder.
I try to tell James all the time to just like listen, but it's like, I don't know any of these songs because they're not on the radio.
I'm an old woman. What can I say? I listen to Coast 103.5. Carrie Steele. If it's not on Carrie Steele's Hour of Power.
Well, she did do Call Me Maybe, so you would have at least known one song.
I think I might have heard of that one.
Yeah. Well, there are actually 4 full-length albums full of, like, James, I tell you, if you maybe not the first listen, but if you put them on, they are earworms that will.
I'll tell you what, I will tell you what, I will listen to a Rae Jepsen album if I can collate a few B-52 songs for you to listen to, because you refuse to listen to B-52s. You hate it. And so I want to show you that there are some really good B-52 songs out there, that, except for, you've only heard Rock Lobster in Tin Roof. So
okay, well, I'll give you that.
Okay, I will listen to Carly if you listen to some B-52s.
Okay. But I'm telling you, like, it's just maybe not hit after hit, but bop after bop after bop after bop. She she has a new album called The Loneliest Time coming out on Friday. So we were kind of worried that all of these songs would be songs that we didn't know from the new album. But it wasn't that at all. It was kind of like a greatest hits hour and 45 minutes outside in Griffith Park at the Greek. It was amazing. Rufus Wainwright came out. She's on the latest, the title track to her new album, The Loneliest Time, is actually a duet with him. So he came out.
I've seen that. He's so good. And were the gays just going bananas?
Bananas. It was it was crazy. Yeah. I sang every song. Tom, she's also a big cat lady. She let us know that one of the songs that we all love, Now That I Found You, is actually written about her cat.
That is the most exciting thing I've heard all month.
Go see this tour if it comes near you. And just a little tidbit, I might have heard a little birdie tell me that our people might be talking to her people. So we'll see. Maybe she may end up on a little show called RuPaul's Drag Race.
Wow. Spoil. We're gonna have to fire you now, Blake. This is so uncomfortable. We're gonna finish the
show. You signed the freaking NDAs, baby. Yeah. I don't know what you think you're doing. Talking on to the national
I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss you.
I know.
All right.
Now, the three people who are listening know what World of Wonder is up to.
Well, no. Edward in our talent department just said that.
We love her. We love her. I think we've done at least 2 lip syncs from her. But anyway, Carly Rae Jepsen on tour, still on tour. Catch her. If you're James St. James and you're uninitiated, there's 4 albums to catch up on. Okay.
Yep.
We're about to take a break. Anything to plug, Blake?
Yes, of course. Canada's Drag Race.
Yay!
Canada versus the World premieres on Friday, November 18th. On Wow Presents Plus, excluding Canada and the UK, where it will be on Crave in Canada. And what's it on in the UK, Tom?
It's on BBC 3, I do believe.
BBC 3. And you can meet the cast over on the Wow Report, or meet the cast in real life at RuPaul's DragCon UK. They're all going to be there.
This is the second versus the world. We did UK versus the world. What's great about them is they're a version of an international drag race. So it's Canadian queens, it's US queens, it's queens from different franchises. And I hear from all accounts that it is spectacular season.
I love this format flip. This country versus the world, and then move around.
Keeps it fresh. Yeah. All right.
So get tickets to RuPaul's DragCon at RuPaulsDragCon.com.
I'm sorry, I interrupted your plug. So how about a little trivia question to keep our minds busy through the commercial break?
You'll never believe what famous sisters are hardcore Alice in Chains fans. They were recently seen at a show in the front row singing every word.
Interesting. All right, we'll have the answer to that exciting question, and we'll continue our countdown of the top 10 things that made us go wow. Right after this, don't go anywhere. You're listening to Radio Andy's Wow Report.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And we are back. This is the Wow Report. It's Tom Campbell. I'm here with James St. James and Blake Jacobs. Fenton Bailey is out of the country, but will be joining us again shortly. We are counting down the top 10 things that made us go wow. But first, Blake asked a trivia question. A trivia question. Blake, repeat, please.
You'll never believe what famous sisters are hardcore fans of Alice in Chains. They were recently seen at a show singing every word to every song in the front row.
I'm going to guess the Olsen twins.
I was going to say the Olsen twins, but then I was also thinking Lindsay and Allie Lohan, or Paris and Nikki Hilton.
It's actually Venus and Serena Williams.
Oh, very surprising.
I like to think of Lindsay Lohan, and who was her sister?
Allie.
It was Allie. I miss Allie Lohan. Didn't she have a show?
No, you're thinking of Ashley Simpson.
Oh yeah, I miss Ashley Simpson too.
Mm-hmm.
Come on back, ladies. All right, we are counting down the top 10 things that made us go wow. We are at number 4.
Number 4.
I was away this past weekend. I went to my 40th plus 1 high school reunion.
Oh.
And it
Class
was
of 82?
Class of 81. It was 40 plus 1 year because we didn't do it last year because of COVID. And can I just tell you, it was the most beautiful experience. I've been back to some other reunions. I've always enjoyed them. There's something about, we're all on the edge of 60, except for Susan Drown, who's still 58, who she reminded us of that constantly. But Gail and Kirk, who were in our class, opened up their home to us. It was like a speakeasy. We drove to their house in this mountain, and then we went behind their house and drove on their lawn, and it came to this incredible top of a mountain expanse that had been cleared. There was food. We have local grinders, which are submarine sandwiches that were being made for us from Cronus Market, plug, best on earth. And there was a fire pit for later. And it was just really beautiful.
Now, how many people were in your class and how many people made it?
There were about 100 people in my class. A little over 30 showed up, which is not so bad. The part I want to talk about, which is odd, is 19 of my classmates have passed away.
Wow.
And so this is usually the rest in peace thing, but it's quite a few, and some recently, and some, a long time ago. Life takes us all at some point. But Cindy, who happens to be the fire chief's wife, I hope I'm getting in trouble, who was also there, suggested, she did these beautiful memory boards for each of the 19 people. And she put little, they were homemade. They were beautiful. She had pictures. She had quotes. And she put little sparkles on it. And the sun was setting because we were there from night. And it was just beautiful and made us all pause. She also wanted us to do something that she'd seen before, which is you take these paper lanterns that are, and then they have a little flinty kind of pad at the bottom. And we took 19 of them with their names on them. And as the sun was setting, and we lit them on fire, and the heat of it sets them free. Well, it was the most beautiful thing until
I was going to say, this always scares the hell out of me because if it's fire season, you have these burning bags in the wind.
I usually see this on Bravo's below deck on the back on at sea. So
maybe that's where Cindy saw it. But I'm telling you, the fire chief from our community was sitting there watching, and it was the most beautiful thing. And we were also touched by it. And then one hit a tree and just got stuck. As 4 others were flying over the forest. And it was all of a sudden, and most people didn't care they'd been drinking. And 3 of us, Brian, Jim, and I were it felt like a movie like The Pod People. They escaped. Oh, what were we thinking?
It goes into a bunch of dry leaves. All hell can break loose.
It had rained the day before. It was beauty. By the way, the foliage in New England, we already know this. It's so beautiful. It's like one of the wonders of the world. So we didn't burn down the town. I kept thinking of those gender reveal parties where they caused it was just going to be awful. But that was the one panic. There was one couple, Dana and Dodie, were high school sweethearts. They're still together. And I'm going to tell this story, and I hope it's not true. But they have all kinds of great stories because they've been together for 40 years. And they used to, in high school, we all did, they'd park. They'd take Dana's car and they'd park and they'd make out. And they go to this one location where they kept getting chased away by this one person who owned the property. And so years later, Dana's at a party, and that person that used to chase him away is at the party. He goes, "Whatever happened to that girl you used to, make out with in your car?" He goes, "I married her." So that's a good story. And then she was right there. And then there was 2 others, Mark and Susan, who are both happily married, but they were high school boyfriend and girlfriend, and just seeing them talk and so many memories and all these different areas. And I just want you, if you'll indulge me, we often use this number 4 for rest in perfection. I'm going to name off the 19 people from my class. I'll do it really quickly. You can think about people that you've lost, but rest in perfection from the class of 81, Newport High School: Tammy Clark, Jody Ducharme, Derek Dodge, Kim Fowler, Sandra George, Stanley Glidden, Sandy Munsterman, George Payette, Frankie Pitkin, Ed Thornton, Sandra Thorson, Keith Walker, Ralph Ingalls, Jim Jones, Keith LaFountain, Bill Beauchene, Billy Crimes, Paul Clark, and Larry Valcour. Rest in perfection. We're moving on now to number 3.
Number 3.
Number 3, I want to talk about Ice Cream Gate, which I don't know if you've been following. What happened was the Daily Mail, as we head towards the election, the media is getting more and more crazy and trying to, get their clicks and their clickbait and everything. And the Daily Mail, which is rabid and nutty in the best of times, has gone full steam. And they had their main headline, the top of the page, the big headline this week was, Biden is slammed for saying the economy is strong as hell while eating ice cream despite 40-year inflation. And the eating ice cream was in all caps. Like it was the most outrageous thing that a president could ever do. And now, okay, first of all, I'm thinking when I read that, I'm thinking, are they trying to make it like an Obama wearing a tan suit? Are they trying to rile the Republicans up? And then I remembered what great luck the Republicans, the right-wingers, had when Nancy Pelosi had expensive ice cream in her expensive freezer. Do you remember this? During the start of the pandemic, there was an interview, and she was standing in front of a very expensive refrigerator, and she took out her very expensive Stone Creamery or whatever, and the Republicans went bananas. And when I tell you that the commenters, first of all, on the Daily Mail are made up of Russian bots and right-wing MAGA crazies, okay?
Right.
And that's just what you're going to get if you go to the comment section. I go to it all the time. I want to read you what happened when they put ice cream in caps. First of all, so some of the comments were, let me see. I haven't been able to afford to take my family out for ice cream in many, many months. Must be nice, Biden. Someone else said, how much did that big fat ice cream cone set you back, Joe? Bet a lot of families would like to take their kids out to ice cream, but can't afford it. But remember, the economy is strong, right, Joe? Someone else said, I can't afford to eat out. I can't afford to go to the grocery store, but Joe Biden is eating ice cream. Someone on then Twitter started getting into it and said, Joe Biden saying the economy is strong while eating ice cream is so tone deaf. You got to think the Republic or the Democrats are trying to lose the election. So then the next day, Herschel Walker, the big headline was Herschel Walker was asked to say something about Joe Biden. He said, the only thing I can relate to Joe Biden is that he likes ice cream. And then it started all over again. And it went on and on and on. And Twitter started doing this whole, I can't believe he can eat ice cream while the world is plunging into darkness. Gas is high, but he eats ice cream, blah, 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 blah.
Just a little helpful hint. If you don't have enough money for ice cream, you can do what I did as a child, and you can take Kool-Aid and pour it into Tupperware things and freeze them in the freezer. And it cost us pennies.
You had to walk in bare feet up.
I did.
In a snowstorm, 6 miles uphill.
In a town filled with arsonists.
He's from New Hampshire.
Exactly. All right. Thank you, James. Blake, what you got for us at number 2?
Number 2.
Nope. It's me again. I'm taking over. I wanted to talk about another scandal that happened last weekend, the Gogh Vandals. I don't know if you were paying attention to this one on the news.
Sexy. It sounds sexy.
Sexy. Last weekend, 2 climate protesters from a group called Just Stop Oil threw tomato soup onto Van Gogh's sunflowers at the National Gallery in London. And the gallery said that the work was unharmed because there was a glass partition between the painting and the soup. There was some minor damage to one of the frames. The 2 climate protesters then super glued their hands to the wall, which is something they've been doing around town. They were able to get that, the police were able to unstick them. It wasn't that big of a deal. But they said they did it to generate publicity and create debate about climate crisis and the actions needed to stop it. They later delivered a speech asking visitors if they were more concerned about protecting the art or protecting the planet, which, fair enough. It's a good debate to have. It's a good starting point, I suppose. Interestingly, reactions to this online in Twitter and social media sort of show the divide between over 40 and under 40. Now, older people were clutching in their pearls saying, but what about the art? What if something did happen to it? It's a $50 million painting. What could, why would they purposely destroy art? Van Gogh has nothing to do with oil. Why are you doing this to a priceless painting that has nothing to do with your cause? Which makes sense. But then the younger people were essentially saying three things. Number one, they were saying, who cares about a dead old white cis man who died 100 years ago? It's not that big of a deal. The other people were saying, nothing happened to the painting. Quit freaking out. This is a tempest in a teapot. Well, young people don't say tempest in a teapot, but you know what I'm saying. So, and then the other people were saying, what is more important, art or the planet? And it, in the long run, if there is no planet, if nobody's around, art doesn't really matter. The big thing is the problem now is climate control, climate crisis. We've got to take care of this. Now, I remember I clutched my pearls a little bit when I heard about it. And because I remember very distinctly when we were bombing Iraqi museums and we were losing priceless art there. And when we bombed Syria and we lost all sorts of museums there and priceless artifacts from the, dawn of time, and things like that. And it does matter, and art does matter. And, Van Gogh does matter. And so I'm it's a toss up for me. What do you think, Tom?
I have never been someone who's on the front line of
anything.
No, but I've always been a people pleaser. Whatever reasons, I'm so glad there are people who sometimes even irrationally in certain ways protest, who bring attention to a cause, who fight. There used to be people when I was growing up who would chain themselves to the nuclear power plant that was being built in New Hampshire, which unfortunately was still built. But I thought those are I don't think I would ever do that, but thank God that they're out there physically putting themselves at risk to make a point that I believed in. So,
and like we lived through the AIDS crisis when it literally changed the narrative and the way the government works and things like that by throwing your dead bodies on the steps of the
so I support people that are radicals and have a point to make. And our climate stuff is just disastrous and no one's paying attention to it. And I'd hate to have the Van Goghs, although don't get me started about how overhyped art is. Art's very important. But the commodification of art, and why one painting is worth like $1 billion and one, is hanging in my apartment, I don't understand the difference. But whatever. And plus, we got that Van Gogh experience now, so you can just go to any empty storefront and just walk around and be in the sunflowers. I'm being silly. That's my takeaway. But I hadn't heard about that. It's more interesting and more edgy and more political than ice cream. You know what I mean? Like, it's at least they're doing something that, I don't know, God bless them. There seems to be more. When I was in London, there seems to be just many more protests in the street, and it feels like a very active issue there, and it does not feel
as opposed to the apathy that we have here in the States, which is a whole problem on itself.
We're gonna take a quick break, very quick, and when we come back, we will reveal the number one thing that made us go wow. This is the Wow Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
All right, and we're back. We're ready to reveal the number one thing this week that made us go wow. James.
Number one.
Well, a couple of celebrities behaving badly made the news this week. Number one, it was James Corden, who was nasty to a server at Balthazar, which is Keith McNally's restaurant in New York. Keith McNally is super restaurateur who has the most famous, most fabulous restaurants in the world in New York City. Pastis, I can't even name all of them, but Balthazar. And James Corden was brutal to one of the waitresses there. And
on more than one occasion, presumably.
Yeah, it
was a pattern of behavior.
Someone said he got fries instead of a salad, and he went ballistic. Now, I have to say that everything I have ever heard about James Corden is that he is nasty to waiters. I've heard that from many food servers over the years. My sister worked in a food truck. He was nasty to the people in the food truck, and they were crying, and he was yelling at them, "What idiots you are, blah, 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 blah." I've heard that he is nasty to the people on his set. He was asked in 2020 to name one person on his staff. He could not give one name of anybody who worked on his show. He thinks that they're all beneath him. I've heard really nasty things. But to his credit, there's a very famous story about him being nasty to a woman with a baby on a plane. And as he was deplaning, you realize that it was his wife and his baby that he had been being nasty to. There's a very famous story that you can look up, James Corden on a plane. But he did call up McNally afterwards and apologize, and he has been reinstated back into Baltimore.
Well, and I've heard that he's talked himself about like how after Gavin and Stacey, he was a big asshole, and even family and everyone.
Well, he has been. If you hear British people too, British people who have worked with him will say nasty. And the people who, when he was on the Broadway show, he's had some really bad press there too. It sounds like he has some issues that he needs to work through.
I have worked with him a couple of times in passing. He's been nothing but cordial. Just giving you my personal experience.
Okay, but
I don't discount what you said. I'm just letting you know my experience. And the other thing is, he was in the movie Cats. He's just lucky to be able to walk around with the rest of us. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you were a waiter and somebody from Cats made fun of you, couldn't you just make Cats jokes and be out of it? Fight back.
I do have to say that the people who support him and the people who say he's been nothing but nice are all rich and famous people. He is nice.
Thank you, James. Thank you for finally recognizing my fame and my richness.
But we've said this before. I think after Cats, I talked about this, and he is not going to be nasty to the casting director, and the director and producer of RuPaul's Drag Race. He's just not. So I discount that, but I do believe if I'm going to be generous to him, that he recognizes now that there are some issues that he needs to work on. The other story of the week was Declan Lauper, not Declan Lauper, Cyndi Lauper's son, Declan. Yeah, was it Lauper?
He goes by Lauper, yes.
Declan Lauper, who is a rapper and a bad boy, and he stole a Mercedes.
Yeah, he's 24. Yeah.
He's 24, and he stole a Mercedes, and he got a very light rap for it. What happened to him?
He got like community service for 5 days or whatever, but you can just tell he's a little shit. We'll post pictures of him on the Lauper board.
LGBTQ plus icon Cyndi Lauper's son is a little shit, according to Blake Jacobs.
Well, it is,
and I can say that because I'm a grumpy old man now.
It is one of those things where, so many children of celebrities, they go through these phases where they try very hard to distance themselves from their legacy and their parents' legacy. And hopefully he'll find himself and clean himself up in the end.
Let's hope it's an isolated incident. And
yes.
On the way to happiness. I think that's all the time we have for this week's show. Fenton Bailey, we miss you. Come back. And James, always a pleasure.
Always Blake, so good to spend time with you.
Blake, usually a pleasure. Usually. And today was one of those pleasurable times. I'm being silly.
It was one of the rare instances where we were all feeling happy and loving.
From the beginning to the end.
So tune in next week. We're going to be in a bad mood. I just know how this works.
Cranky pants. Cranky time.
Thank you for listening. Everybody take care of yourself. And until we meet again, go out and do something that makes the world go wow. Wow.